Hi everyone, and welcome to this StoryMaker tutorial. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to work the heel in Zachel's slipper sock pattern because the beginning of the double knit sole can be a little tricky. This is one of my favorite patterns from the book, mostly because of the double knit sole feature. The top of the foot, the instep, and the rest of the pattern is worked in stranded color work, but the sole is worked in a double thickness of fabric because you switch to double knitting for the width of the sole. This makes for this really gorgeously squishy sole for your slipper, but it can be a bit tricky to set this up when you turn the heel. So I've made myself a little mini version of the slipper for the purposes of the tutorial with smaller needles and thinner yarn. These little slipper socks will go to my youngest when I finish them up. I've knit up to the end of the leg, and here I'm just starting the heel flap. I wanted to demonstrate the heel flap in this video as a reminder that you need to be twisting the strands together at the edges when you're working flat like this, because otherwise you'll end up with gaps between the stitches made with the main color yarn. In this case, my green yarn is my main color yarn, and the complementary color garter stitch edges with the heel flap. Let me just speed through here, and I'm going to find a good place to zoom in and show you what I mean about twisting the strands together. Here I am on a wrong side row of the heel flap, and I'm taking those yarns back on themselves. So I'll need to cross the green strand over the yellow strand before I begin. This is going to trap the green strand in place at the edge of the knitting so that it can't create those messy gaps we're trying to avoid. You'll see that after I make those initial stitches, I twist the strands back so that they aren't tangled and so that I'm maintaining the working order of the colors. In this case, I want my green strand to stay on top and my yellow strand to stay on the bottom. This will really make the yellow pop in the patterning. Here I've worked my way once through the heel flap pattern repeat. I'm going to finish up this heel flap so that we can take a look at converting the single knit stitches to double knit stitches when we turn the heel. Now I've made my little heel flap, and it's time to start the heel turn. I'm working with the instructions for the smallest size, so for this first row, I'm going to work 4 stitches maintaining the heel flap pattern. Then I'm going to convert 5 single stitches into double stitches. In the pattern, this conversion stitch uses the abbreviation KFMBC. This stands for knit into the front of the stitch with the main color and into the back of the stitch with the complementary color. Basically, you're executing a KFB, or knit into the front and back of the same stitch. The big difference is you're knitting the 2 new stitches with different strands of yarn. I'll zoom in here a bit so you can see these single stitches being converted. On this first row of the smallest size, I'm converting 5 single stitches to double knit stitches. And you can see I'm using the green yarn for the first stitch through the front of the loop, and then the yellow yarn for the second stitch through the back of the loop. Now I have 10 stitches instead of 5, and they alternate between green and yellow. The green stitches will become the outside sole of the slipper, so when you're working flat, they will be knit on the right side and purled on the wrong side. The yellow stitches will become the inside sole of the slipper, so they'll be purled on the right side and knit on the wrong side. Once you've finished turning the heel and are knitting in the round again, the outside sole stitches will be knit and the inside sole stitches will be purled. I'm going to complete this first short row with the SSK and knit 1. On the wrong side, I'm slipping the first stitch purlwise, purling 1, and then I'll start double knitting. The key here is yarn management, and you'll see I need to pause a moment to orient myself. To make that first knit stitch on the yellow or inside sole, both yarns need to be out of the way at the back of the work, so that I'm never accidentally creating any floats. The yarns then both come to the front of the work to make the first green purl stitch. Also, a reminder here that when you're working this section flat, the 2 yarns need to be twisted together before you start the double knitting stitches. This is again to anchor those yarns in place at the edge of the sole so that it's firmly attached to the rest of the knitting. I'll just show you how I finish out this wrong side short row with the rest of the double knit stitches. Then at the end, the P2 together and purl 1. On each right side short row of the heel turn, you'll convert new stitches to double knitting with the KFMB stitch. Now I've completed the heel turn. In the smallest size at the end of the 5th short row, I've converted all the stitches to double knit stitches, and I now have 18 stitches on the needle. Also, you can see that the double knit fabric is starting to emerge, with the green stitches all lining up and popping out to the outside of the work, and their mirror image yellow stitches all lining up on the inside of the work. I hope you found this tutorial helpful in illustrating this unusual technique and that you're enjoying the pattern. Zachel's slipper socks are the first pattern in Storymaker, an illustrated book of knitting, fibre, and fable by Alexis Hoy. Storymaker is an illustrated short novel that includes 12 original knitting patterns inspired by the story. Knit along with Rowan as she follows her people's heritage back to a land lost to memory, where creativity has been throttled. At the home of the Storymaker, Rowan begins to find answers and hope for her endangered village, but her quest has upset the land's tenuous political balance, and Rowan must use all her powers of making to ensure the safety of her family and her newfound friends. You can find the Storymaker book, yarns, and individual patterns at storymadeyarns.com.